Amazon just announced they're going to lay off 10,000 people, and that's just the canary in the coal mine for the coming recession. And I want to discuss how that affects you, especially if you are a worker who's not obligated to go to the office. But before we get into all the headlines and the details, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And if you're somebody who wants to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So don't forget to turn on that notification bell as well. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss what's going on with unemployment, because Amazon laying off 10,000 employees is clearly just the canary in the coal mine, as I mentioned in the intro. This is a significant signal to markets that things are about to get worse. And just as we find out that Amazon is planning these layoffs, the Federal Reserve in the US completely flipped and indicated that they are only going to increase interest rates by 0.5% at their next meeting. That's down from the 0.75%. And this is largely due to the fact that in order for the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada to get to the point where they want to get to with inflation, they're going to have a certain number of jobs that are going to be eliminated. Now, here's the problem. If they go too far too fast, that could lead to massive amounts of unemployment. And this is what's making news. So let's jump in. I want to show you first and foremost the headline from the New York Times. Amazon is said to plan to lay off thousands of employees, up to 10,000. Now, this represents about 1% of their workforce, which you wouldn't think is a big deal, but this is a big deal. This is a lot of jobs, and it's coming from their device units, which is basically a retail product. So in other words, this isn't just a tech-driven layoff like many of the other layoffs happening in the tech industry. This is a set of layoffs that are basically recognizing that certain companies have grown too fast during the pandemic, which, by the way, is pretty much most companies have grown too fast during the pandemic. And there's some significant right sizing that needs to be happening as the economy starts to turn from boom to bust. And Amazon isn't the only tech company that's doing this. Obviously, there's been a significant amount of tech layoffs. Obviously, Twitter is a huge number of those with Elon Musk taking over that company. But as you can see, the number of tech layoffs has been growing on a monthly basis for quite some time here, and culminated with this month in November, a pretty significant announcement from, like I said, Amazon, that they're going to lay off a pretty significant amount of their workforce. This comes as Twitter lays off about 4,400 people, and as Meta lays off 11,000 people. So these layoffs are happening in the tech industry, and they're about to happen in the rest of the economy as companies start to right size and scale down for the coming reduction in demand. Because keep in mind, higher interest rates is all about reducing demand, and reduced demand means businesses have to cut back. And the first place that most businesses cut back when they have to is in their employees. Now, with respect to job losses, the Bank of Canada is suggesting that job losses will rise but won't reach levels previously seen in other economic downturns. And this is just false. This is something that the Bank of Canada is saying in order to reassure Canadians that you don't have to worry about massive amounts of unemployment. But make no mistake, a reduction in demand doesn't come by taking 5 or 10% of the money out of everybody's pockets. It comes from reducing the amount of pockets that have money in them by 5 to 10%. And that's pretty much what's going to happen here. We are going to see layoffs, and we are going to see unemployment in order to bring these inflation numbers down. And here's the thing about unemployment. Employment doesn't go up gradually. Employment is something that spikes significantly as large numbers of employers realize, holy crap, we have to cut jobs. And that's what's going to happen this time around. There isn't going to be a smooth rise in unemployment because there never has been. Look back to 1946. This is from Statistics Canada. And what you can see is that when unemployment spikes, it spikes quite significantly. And there's no exception to this rule. It goes up, and it goes up fast. That's just the way it works. And once it starts, it's hard to stop it. There's only one way to stop it, and that's by decreasing interest rates and getting the economy back to a more normal market. So here's the reality is unemployment is coming, and here's the saddest part, is the slowdown is going to affect mostly low-income earners. So these are the people who are going to feel the pain the most. They're the first ones to lose their jobs. They feel inflation the most when it happens, especially at the grocery store and the gas pump. And this is the really sad thing about where we're at in the economy right now. It's the low-income people that are going to feel the impact the most. And Pierre Poilievre, he made a really good point the other day. And I'm one of the first to criticize Pierre Poilievre, but he made a really good point.
Well, what's not looking pretty good is the cost of diesel. In New Brunswick, it's over $3 a liter. Diesel is not a luxury. It's a necessity when you live in the country and drive a big truck. It's a necessity for the truckers that bring us our goods to our grocery stores. No wonder we have 11% food price inflation. And home heating bills are not looking any better. They're going to double this winter. And families in oil-heated communities will have to spend thousands of dollars. Cutting their subscription to Disney will save them $13. That's not enough to pay the bill. But what would help is if they canceled the plan to triple the tax. We'll know.
He suggested that things like the federal tax credit and all of the things that the Liberal government is trying to do to help low-income earners are just a drop in the bucket when we have things like $3 diesel. And by the way, $3 diesel in New Brunswick is a major issue, because what that means is that pretty much everything that is delivered via a truck or via a plane or via any method of transportation is going to go up in price. So we need to be cognizant of this. And by the way, everyone who has a job needs to be cognizant of where they are right now in their employment situation and needs to do everything they can in order to make sure that they maintain their jobs. So what do I mean by this? Well, there's this large group of people who are doing the whole work from home thing. As we came out of the pandemic, employers have basically said to a lot of their employees, well, you can continue to still work from home, maybe part-time or maybe full-time. And they did this because they feared that they would lose those employees. And at a time where the economy was booming and business was booming, they didn't want to lose that staff. Now we're finding ourselves in a situation where unemployment is going to go up. And when it does go up, guess what? The first people to lose their jobs are going to be the ones that are out of sight, out of mind. So if you're working in a job where you have the option to work from home, my suggestion is that now would be the time to stop taking up your employer on that option, because you want to be in the office and you want to be visible to your bosses. And on top of that, this is the time where you want to be putting in the extra hours, going above and beyond, and making sure that you are seen as a vital asset that cannot be laid off. Because if you can do that, you can make it through this round of layoffs that is coming. And like I said, a round of layoffs is likely coming if the economy continues to go in the direction it is going, if interest rates continue to go up, and if we find ourselves in a recessionary period. So you need to make sure you are valuable and indispensable to your employer, or you need to be going to find another employer who absolutely needs you and make sure that you also show them your worth. So scary things are undoubtedly coming from an unemployment perspective. I've talked about this in other videos that I will link to right here, especially the one where I talk about how you will know when interest rates will stop going up. And by the way, I talked quite a bit in that video about how you'll know when interest rates will stop going up and how it is directly tied to unemployment, and the fact that the Federal Reserve in the US has signaled that they aren't going to increase interest rates quite as much on the recent unemployment news is a pretty good indication that that was correct. So if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, and again, check out that video, which I'll link right here.